Hi, I'm Chris Toplack of The Signature Spot. In today's Signature Short, which is a wrestling story in 5 minutes or less, is how Percy Pringle joined the WWF with the help of a good friend. It was 4 days before Christmas 1990 in Dallas, Texas. World-class championship wrestling had closed down its doors a couple of years before, and the USWA was ready to move back to Tennessee to make room for the new Global Wrestling Federation at the world-famous Sportatorium. William Moody, his gimmick known as Percy Pringle, found himself without a job and on the verge of bankruptcy. His car had just been repossessed, and his family didn't have the money for a Christmas tree, let alone presents to place under one. William Moody, aka Percy Pringle, knew in his heart that his wrestling career was effectively over and it was time to make a drastic change. Percy called his friend, ravishing Rick Rude, who he also previously managed. Rick was working for the WWF at the time, and he explained to Rick precisely what was going on in his life and all of the shortcomings. Percy also noted that he planned on moving back to Alabama and going back to work in the funeral industry. Rick was understandably sympathetic and asked him not to make any rash decisions. Rick told Percy he would call him back before the end of the day. When the two talked again a couple of hours later, Rick said, "Vince wants you to call him at home." Percy couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Now, let me know what he has to say," Rick concluded. Percy collapsed on the sofa, dropping Vince McMahon's telephone number to the floor. For 20 long minutes, he lay there, trying to convince himself that it wasn't a dream. Finally, he mustered the courage to pick up the phone and dial Mr. McMahon's private home number. "Where have you been all of these years?" Percy vividly recalls Vince asked him. After some brief chit-chat, Percy eagerly agreed to meet with Vince after the holidays. Although the conversation didn't resolve his Christmas woes, Percy spent a restless night pondering the possibility of finally making it to the Fed. The next morning, Percy's phone rang. It was Pat Patterson, Mr. McMahon's right-hand man, urgently requesting Percy's presence in New York. Vince wanted to see Percy sooner than expected. Without any hesitation, Percy agreed to catch an early afternoon flight and provided Pat with the necessary information. Stepping off the plane, Percy spotted a sharply dressed gentleman holding a card with his name on it. After introducing himself and retrieving Percy's bag, Percy followed the man to the waiting limousine. "A limousine? Hell, I don't even own a car," Percy mused to himself, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation building within him. The limo driver chauffeured Percy out of the bustling New York City and into the state of Connecticut. After a brief ride, they arrived at a majestic 5-star hotel in Stamford, where Percy was greeted with the utmost hospitality and whisked away to his lavish penthouse suite. Within 5 minutes of entering the room, Percy's phone rang, and it was Pat Patterson. "Percy, Vince wants to see you at 10 a.m. Pat told him, "I'll pick you up at 9:45. In the meantime, you can eat, drink, and do whatever you want to do. Just sign your name. It's all courtesy of Titan Sports." To say that Percy was nervous would be an understatement. He was absolutely petrified as he stepped into Vince McMahon's office the next morning, which also happened to be his wedding anniversary on December 22nd, 1990. Vince wasted no time in making Percy feel right at home. As Vince perused his resume, he began to chuckle. "You have a degree in mortuary science?" Mr. McMahon asked. "This is just too much." Little did Percy know that they were in need of a manager for The Undertaker, and Vince had no idea that he had a legitimate background in funeral service as well as being a wrestling manager. It was a match made in heaven, and when Percy left Titan Towers, he had a WWF contract in hand. Percy's family successfully made it through the holidays, and to top it off, the WWF contract that he received was the perfect anniversary gift. In January 1991, Percy hit the road as Paul Bearer, managing none other than The Undertaker. The rest, as they say, is history.